Hello and welcome to Spotlight On. I'm your host, Lawrence Purrier. Spotlight On is brought to you by Light, the technology platform reimagining e-commerce for live events. You can learn more about Light at light.com/partnerships. That's LYTE.com/partnerships. Welcome to the final episode of Season 5, recorded with a live audience via Zoom. More on that in a second. We'll be taking a brief hiatus before starting Season 6, but watch our feed. We won't leave you hanging between now and the start of our new episodes. In the meantime, thank you so much for listening and enjoy our special season-ending episode with classical pianist, podcaster, and author Jeeyoon Kim. So we spoke a little bit in the green room about sort of what I think of as your philosophy of accessibility. Bringing classical music beyond sort of its traditions and conventions. Could you talk a little bit about the genesis of that philosophy for you and why it's important?
Yeah, I mean, as a passionate lover of classical music, more and more I noticed my generation of people or friends or people I meet don't know about that beauty. And for me, classical music is rock and roll in my head. And so I wanted to create that bridge. Unlike my grandmother's generation, their entertainment was the piano. I so wish I could go back 200 or 300 years ago, where piano was the pop music of the world, and pianist comes to town, they're so excited, and everybody in the town would gather together and listen to that pianist. And so for them was a highlight of their entertainment. And now in the classical music, it's a farther and farther away, yet the beauty still remains. So when I talk to a friend who is not really classical music literate, and I would say, I'm working on this piece. This piece, I don't know, something about this piece really gave me the heartache. I wonder what Brahms was talking about. I think this piece really touched me in this right here, this section, listen to me. And I apply that piece, and that person, who doesn't matter who, she or he, will be like, oh my gosh, that's so beautiful. I never heard such thing like that. And then I realized, they just never had experiencing of classical music in the right way. Maybe never really put them into that place. They could listen to classical music in the context. So I started to talk about music as a performer, what I feel about it personally, what's going through in my head before I play, and then share it. Then the result was actually very, very surprising to me too, because a lot of people came to me, and I never thought I would appreciate classical music as much as I did today. And then they become a fan of it. And for me, classical music to me is gift for humanity. And for me, my job is a messenger. I'm a UPS delivery person because through me performing this music live, they can experience. Otherwise, this is remain black and white on the music. I'm a person who actually make the black and white become 3D. And so I can actually talk directly to the composer who lived 200 years ago. Then I become the cup for the music. And then person can experience that, drink that. And they bypass me and get to their soul. And while they listen, maybe they're thinking about their own memory of childhood, or their own, image, or whatever they're going through in their head. It's a fourth dimension. We forget time. We forget this space. We're meeting in those fourth dimension. I think this is such a beautiful experience. Everybody should take advantage of it. And that's why I'm passionate about it, because I feel like I'm given that mission to do.
When did you first encounter the music, and when did you first have some of those transcendent reactions that you're talking about?
I wish I could remember that. But I think for me, I was always the musical child, always like singing a song, love music, happy kid, I think. And I also played flute when I was young. And piano was something, my playground, my oasis. And when I decided what to do with my life, maybe about 12 years old or 10, or I don't know. In that time in Korea, I had to make a decision. Is this something that I want to pursue? And when I think about that, there's no other possibility in my head but music. And so piano is something, I don't know, piano chose me or I chose piano. So that's how it got started. Of course, then throughout my life, the music through piano or even other through the music that taught me how to live life or heal me and gave me a joy and peace. So for me, that music is something, is my home. And I think it can be a home for many people. Or so I think, I don't know, the music and me is like a best friend.
When you were starting out as a young child, and you first sat down at the piano in a structured educational way, taking lessons, what did you encounter, and how has piano instruction changed from when you were a child to now? Or has the philosophy or the approach changed, or is it something that's sort of been stuck in amber and there's no real sort of innovation or evolution?
I think it's a lot of struggles for sure. I think the struggles within and struggles from others. That struggle is we're living in a competitive world. So the struggle was when I was young is, am I good enough? How can I love this music? But there's also, I'm living in a competition world and everybody play in that time in Korea. I remember everybody's plays crazy Chopin etude, which is technically challenging piece, and so plays faster, so and so plays better. And in my mind, there's also a lot of negative voice that created within me. Yet, in the lessons, one-to-one lessons, we talked about how music is divine, how I construct music such a way it's like resembling nature. Music is a part of the nature. So when I think about rhythm, it's never metronomical, but more of just like a stream goes down the rock, and it's just natural curvature. How can we create the nature organic shape of phrasing? And in my mind, how can I create this phrasing most beautiful and organic way, yet technically so clean so that I can stand out? And those two are in a way not the same thing. And if it's as if I wanted to talk about the message, I can think about, am I pronunciation okay? Am I having a Korean accent? I can think about the other polishing way, but yet those things are also become important. So there are a lot of struggles, I think, throughout my life as a pianist. What is more important? What is not as important? And of course, at the end, as I go through life, I realize the message is the most important. Yet I cannot like teach the technique either, but the all other aspect serves to express the message more strongly. So it shaped my concept of music through the lesson and on my own. But a lot of it is soul searching through it and realizing how I connect with the audience. It's so much of connecting with any other form, like writing through the writing or through the conversation. I just have to be the genuine person who wants to connect with the composer and that audience or with myself, and that transparency through being a human, everything being vulnerable, expressed in music is so beautiful. So I try to remain humble and yet true to the art. And I ask questions to the composer. Yeah, I wish, but they only left to the score. So often I ask to the composer who's not here, invisible, but then, is this what you want? Am I respecting you? And from that's the main message. And underneath that, how I feel about it. And that's actually just to become again a cup for it. And I try to be transparent cup. That's my I guess theory of music for as a performer, that I try as much as possible to respect the art, just to transparent as possible, so people can experience this music as direct as possible.
How far into your development as an artist did you feel? At what point did you become confident enough to have this philosophy, this theory, and did it spring fully formed?
That's actually a very good question in a way, that as I don't know any other field, but classical musicians, especially someone like me, went through academia for a long time, master's and doctorate and another master's. It's easy to overshadow by the masters. The masters of teachers often are the whatever other than they're creating is garbage. And there's actually borderline abusive, a lot of a relationship that built that students never come out as independent musicians, never become their own. And it's difficult place when you're in school, especially, that you want to learn, you want the constructive feedback, yet there's a voice keep growing within you from others and within saying, you're not good enough, you're not yet there yet, never yet, never yet. And that I'm an advocate of not yet mindset, but yet at some point you have to become on your own. And I think when I went through the doctorate, I was slowly kind of realizing that there's no distinction between students and become on my own artist. I just have to make a decision that I'm gonna do my own path. And I think slowly, luckily, during my doctorate period, that I got to perform more outside of school, actually meeting real audiences who are not piano faculties, not piano students, or not music majors. Then I realized the real audiences are not academia or the musicians. So I have to actually think, what is real? What is reality? I can't live in the fantasy, although I used to love living in that fantasy world. So for me, it was a conscious choice by having a lot more performances outside of the school. And then at some point, I decided, okay, I think, also my teacher, the last teacher I had in the doctorate degree, and she, one time I play something and I asked, I'm not sure I'm playing this one correctly. I'm not sure my technique is good enough here. And she said, you play every note. You have everything. What else can you do? And somehow in that particular conversation liberated me that's right. I have everything. There's more important I have to focus, which is again the message. And also throughout the school years, I learned much more about myself, which was very important. Who am I? What kind of personality I am? What kind of music that I love, and how I interact with the audience, or how I play music is directly who I am. So then no one can be Jeeyoon Kim. So I can only be Jeeyoon Kim. So I started to become Jeeyoon Kim, not someone else that I admire, someone else I respect. And I respect them, but yet I wanted to find my own voice. And I think there was a slowly but conscious choice that I want to become on my own.
So you talk about the voice and the message and the communication and connection.
Mm-hmm.
There's something in there I'd like to look at for a minute. When I speak to other musicians in particular, some of them talk about their tone on their
Mm-hmm.
instrument as being
Mm-hmm.
very unique to them.
Mm-hmm.
Others talk about maybe it's the nature of the music. Maybe they play improvisational music, so that's how they're able to express, their unique thing. How does a classical pianist come across in a realm where so much of what is to be done is on the page?
Right.
And is there room for improvisation, or how do you shine through versus if someone equally proficient and sensitive sat down and played?
Oh, that's a very good question. The thing is, it is true that I'm playing the same piece that millions and jillions of people are playing, maybe same tempo, same maybe beautiful phrasing. But it for me is a treasure hunting. And each day, the way I play now is dramatically different than the way I played 20 years ago. So who am I to keep evolving, hopefully to the better direction and maturing? So first of all, mostly I have to open-minded and curiosity that I will be always changing. So there is something that to be discovered. And secondly, I think the way I approach, maybe the tone of my voice, tone of my piano is different than someone else play. So that already the tone, the way I massage the piano it can be my voice. Another thing is that I think if there's anything that I find myself is somewhat gifted is that I can connect. So when I play a piece of music, let's say there's a 4 major phrasing going on, and I found that particular 2 notes, there's some melancholy sadness rushed over my feeling, that 2 notes, and I felt it. And I tried to create that moment of adding that sadness in my tone, in my expression, that the other pianist will just, this is just 2 notes passing through. So then I have to be so open about what is going on here and express that 2 notes in a very, in my own way without adding so much of color, but I express my sadness through it. And when I listen to same musical piece that performed by another pianist, sometimes I surprise, oh, wow, he and she thinks that is happy there. Oh, I see. Or someone just go through it without even noticing all the treasures that I found. And I feel sometimes violated, like, there was like at least 10 you missed there. Or sometimes someone is so good at creating a structural playing so that you can see the sketch of the pieces so clear and loud. And then for me I think I can, my strength, I think in my performance, if I can say objectively, is that creating a structure, but then in the moment of beauty of nuances, each note that speak more, I don't know, like a pronounced, or each note has some meaning to it. And so when you go, I purposely go to the same performance, the same piece played by 100 people, because I'm curious. I am curious how this person gonna interpret differently, or what did he find it in that score. So then I sometimes like learn from it, and yet like learn about that particular pianist. He's very analytical person. I can see that, so and so is very humoristic. I like that. Or someone is very emotional, and all of this different, you're learning about that person as a performer, as a person through their performance. And that's really, really interesting. And I think the people come to the live performance of classical music to be heard again, that beautiful piece of music interpreted by that particular pianist.
You said something earlier, and it's a phrase I've heard used often, which is technically challenging. Mm-hmm. And I wonder, did all of the most well-known composers perform their pieces? Like, was Chopin an amazing pianist or an amazing composer, or both? Or did they not have to perform the pieces that they wrote and they were just theories?
Yeah, no. Interestingly, a lot of amazing composers happen to be a pianist. Not always, though. But I think when there are amazing composers and at the same time pianists, it's rather convenient for them to perform it. But yet there's someone like Liszt, who is amazing pianist. I think that he was actually a better pianist than composer. So when he actually composed some pieces that it's just so much flash and all, and I feel like, oh, is it necessary, or it's just like showing off his technique only, and I think that distinction between composer and pianist performer was less at the back in the day, but more and more, I see that as if there is definitely a role that great pianist would interpret your piece better than you can. And if you are a composer, so that they kind of they separate the role a little bit more. But I certainly at the back in the day, especially there's no printer and there's no distribution, and someone has to play that piece to distribute their music they wrote, and it's so easier for them to just premiere their piece, and it's just easier that way. But not all composers were that way, so they have a good pianist friends.
And who is, I've read your book, so I may have a guess as to the answer here, but I'd like to hear directly from you. Who's your pinnacle as a composer?
That's actually not an easy question, I have to say, because for me, whatever I'm working on currently, it's on my pinnacle, because that's where I'm most giving a love and attention. And sometimes it's not the composer, but that particular piece that I love, and any other thing that he composes is not really my favorite. Of course, Beethoven, whatever he does is like I bow down, and he's like a master of a master. Personally, I connect a lot with Schumann's piano music. So every time I play Schumann, I feel connected. And so as Schubert and Debussy. So if I have to choose three, it would be Schumann, Schubert, and Debussy. Debussy particular is about impressionistic painting. I create a color, and there's a particular piece that I play sometimes. It's called Pagodas. And it just, the mood of the piece creates, you're in Asia, you're just in the temple in Korea. And it's not individual note doesn't make sense, but as a brush stroke of one note going up is creating the mist in the mountain. And I love that kind of expression that Debussy can create so much mood by just creating a sound. And I have to ask Debussy, have you ever been to Korea yet? How could you bring my childhood through the just stroke of the notes, So I love creating that magic, use the genius of Debussy on piano.
Wow. I find that this is a very unscientific sample, but pianists often say Chopin, and then music, sort of knowledgeable music people often just say, oh, well, Bach. I mean, that's as though like that's the pinnacle of Western civilization.
Right.
And it's all been downhill since Bach. But you said that Beethoven's a master. And what does the word master mean in sort of a lowercase m as well as an uppercase M? Is there a master musician, and what makes a master musician?
I think it's actually an interesting question. For me, Beethoven I can see it as he's the gift of humanity. And, despite of all his struggle, he lost his hearing or his personal difficulties in his life, he left a gift to the humanity, and he was a servant. He needed to exist in that time of era to create that music. And I think when I think about the master of whoever, a composer or musicians, I feel like they all serve a purpose of humanity and servant of the art. And sometimes I don't actually want to hear about their personal lives because sometimes I go, how come they're actually crazy? Did you know that so and so was schizophrenic? And like, I know. Let's not go there. Let's just look at their music and what that music does to you. And for me, all of those masters are. In some ways, when I play, like learn some notes from Beethoven, like how in the world he could think about this particular harmony or this particular way of transitioning. And like he's the master of mathematics and master of science and all of philosophies all combined and create it's just beauty. If I can wanted to recreate something like that without learning about mathematics and science and philosophy or all of this, but he was just a musician who can create that and reflect every part of our humanity that is combined into the high art form. And it's in some ways that I find it like, oh, he's definitely descendant from the heaven and just wanted to spread this to us to appreciate, and I feel like I can be that, but I can appreciate.
Yeah, I'm laughing because the answer was not that there's some objective measure or that there's some specific achievement that you check off and now you get handed your master robe or your master scepter. It's the totality of the achievement and the capability.
Right. I think for me, when I get a master's degree, this is funny, is that I learned the most by realizing how little I know. So that was a good realization that after I go through everything I could possibly go through in academia, one thing I learned is I don't know. Which was very revelation. And I felt like very humble and, oh, I see. Even if I went through everything, I'm a doctor of music and piano performance. It's a reputable university. If I feel like I don't know much at all, that's a good place to be. Now I can actually proudly not know and continue seeking, continue looking for something, continue actually being a learner, of lifelong learner, and being continuously being a student that try to find out something and finding a treasure. And it's okay for not knowing. It's okay to be human.
As a way to transition a bit into talking about some of your work and projects, I'm curious as to, we started off by talking about sort of notions of accessibility around classical music and maybe people being intimidated about the canon or where to start or what the ways in are. And I wonder, what are some of the obstacles that you identified that needed to be addressed, that were separating the music from the audience?
I think definitely a formality of it or assumption that a lot of classical music presenters would think that this one has to be presented in a very formal, in other words, 40 minutes of recital, which means performers come out to the stage, play something for 40 minutes, and there's intermission, 15 minutes, and there's another 45 minutes of music. Performers never really interact with the audience. There's a program note talking about the historical background of the music. People come out to the concert in very formal attire, something that they assume they would know something about Chopin. They assume that they will immediately love about this classical music without knowing anything. That kind of formality. And so as audiences that who never experienced classical music thinking that, oh, that's not for me, that's boring, that's only for like, PBS, all those assumptions that that's not going to be for them, and also like shy away from actually experiencing it in a real way. Even it's a CD or album format, I actually create a manual of the album saying, if you're gonna listen to my CD once and never again, this is how I want you to experience, which is spare an hour from your life, have a headphone, and read what I wrote about each piece, and close your eyes and dive into an experience, not as a background while you drive, not as background while you cook. So I feel like everything is start as assumption that our audience is not like, this is not going to be for me, it's going to be difficult, this is going to be too stuffy, too boring, whatever the assumption they have. Presenters come from, I have to keep the tradition of classical music, which is, it's their concert goers, who is a lot of older generation. They tend to like this Beethoven sonatas, number 4, 5, 6, in a row. And all those repertoire selections are very much geared towards the audience that already going to a classical concert. And they're neglecting this pool of audiences that never listened to classical music other than a soundtrack of movie, if it happens to be, or, some kind of like a background music. So I find that it's a lot of a traditions or an assumption. And in the midst of it, we lose this beauty of classical music. So I come along with more of a younger generation looking and saying, you know what, I'm so crazy about classical music. And they're like, oh, really? What about it? And I talk about it, I play this Rachmaninoff and this piece is like, and then I actually perform and feel like maybe there's something to it. If they become curious, then that's my job done. And a lot of people actually call me as a gateway drug to classical music. And I love the quote. In a way, that serves my mission. And if you actually open the door of classical music through me, or just happen to be, and dive into some other field of classical music because of the introduction that you got through me, and I think that's really meaningful for me.
Yeah. And so I suppose that takes us directly into the podcast that you created. Can you talk a little bit about, what was the genesis of that project, and where does it fit into your life as, a stage performer versus, a podcast? Like, how do you, is it the same person?
Oh, it is definitely the same person. Interesting that you ask, is the same person. And a lot of times that I struggle as a performer, like I wish I was born in 1800. So all I had to do is playing piano and perform perhaps, or maybe compose. But now I'm an agent of myself. I'm marketing. I'm doing all these things, and I'm podcaster. I'm doing YouTube. I'm actually, to social media, and I feel like, oh, I wish I could just play piano. But at the same time, I realize, this is in the modern world that I live in. Its most powerful message that I can give is me talking directly as a performer. I can have an agent to talk about me. I have other people to talk about what I'm going to do. But when I talk, I found that it's the most direct, most contagious and powerful. And when I think about one time, I actually was an interviewee, like as a guest in one podcast, and I would talk about what I do and whatnot. And afterwards, I was thinking in my head, that was kind of fun. What if I had my own podcast? And it became a game for me. And I actually brushed that idea for many times, maybe like a million times, like, no, I don't have time. Like, well, I don't even know how to do it, like, where do I start? But then that idea keep coming back to my head, like, it would be fun, isn't it? Like, you always loved radio. something very analog about this conversation, just only voice. It's very much in line with the classical music. Yeah, no, it's black and white a little bit more. And I finally gave in to my thoughts. And okay, you know what? I'm going to try it. And, before anything, I'm going to create a title. Maybe Journey Through Classical Piano. I like that. Okay, let's go to it. And I went to this 99 design or something website that you can create a contest. The contest is that creating the best cover design for your podcast. And I could write a description, and I had so much fun with creating my own competition for my podcast. And there are a lot of people submitting, and it became a sort of game for me, playground in my world with a mission. And in my life formula, in generally speaking, is that have a meaning and also have fun. Did I have fun in the process? Did I help anybody in the process? If the answer is yes, is there more to do it? That is a definition of success for me. And so through that podcast, what I wanted to do is become who I am as a performer, as if I talk on the stage. On the stage, I talk very poetically. I talk maybe 3 or 4 sentences about what I'm going to play. I don't really talk deeply about, really discussion about that particular piece I'm going to play, because I find that talking part is part of the performance. And I think more maybe than how I'm going to play about what I'm going to say, so that it's a succinct kind of experience. So in the podcast, I have a little bit more freedom and still talk about, in this piece is really technically challenging, but in this particular piece that I find that this moment I found the treasure, listen for it. And I go dive into it a little bit more. And then I share my own performances. And this is like a miniature version, candy version of you coming to my concert, which is limited only to the people who can come to in live concert in person. And podcast is much more broad. And, some people in Indonesia might be able to listen. And I love that idea. I'm reaching out to the world with the same mission that I have as a performer, as a pianist, and do that.
Can you describe the book? Tell the audience what your book is. I was going to say about, but what is the mission of your book?
It's called Whenever You're Ready. That came from 30 seconds before I go on a stage. There's always stage manager waiting for my cue and saying, whenever you're ready, holding that stage door to the stage. And that very moment, I ask myself, am I ready? In that very moment, I have to create so much courage and strength within, and telling myself, yes, you are enough. You have this to share with the world. People are out there. It's excited to see you, hear you. I'm grateful. Just go out with a smile and enjoy this concert as if this is the last concert of your life. And I make a decision to walk to the stage. A lot of people think being a concert pianist is all about, practicing piano and mastering the instrument. But a lot of it, it's a lot to do is mind training, mind games of how to create that connection, how within yourself, with others, how to create the dreaming muscles within you, how to take care of your body, how the meditation helps for the music creating, and how actually creating a system that I can actually consistently practice and creating a habit and demystifying the talent. I'm so talented and I laugh, only if you see how much I work. So I in this written book concert, which I have 5 movements, by the way, and within this written journey, I wanted to walk through my life tools that get to a point that whenever someone asks me, stage manager, whenever you're ready, and I can finally say with a smile, Yes. That from that 30 seconds is all my life preparation to get to that point. And I realized what I do in the behind the scene in my green room is so much in line with preparing for life. And I advocate that I'm not the only one who has a stage. Everyone has a stage called life. And I wanted to create a book, which is, again, very intimate relationship that you build. When you read, you can actually have an inner dialogue with authors. I love that relationship that you can build, internal dialogue you can have. And I wanted to go in deeper into my life and into my thought processes and help someone that maybe you want to learn a language, maybe you wanted to take up a hobby, or whatever you wanted to do is that moment of you actually have to make the first step, that inspiration, that motivation, that courage, that I wanted to give that glimpse of that. And as if I'm your friend, not as someone master, but more like, I struggle with this, but this was really helpful. When you listen through with a friend, it's something light about it. And maybe many of the tools that I talk in the book, heard of in the past, but because the perspective of who I am, or as a concert pianist, or as a friend, or as a fellow human or fellow soldier in this life, you may pick up one or two tools that is really helpful for your life. And ultimately, step forward to classical music, because there's intermissions in the book that I talk about actually classical music, and that's a kind of reverse version of concert, because I don't talk about classical music except that 2 pages of intermission, which I direct people to go to my podcast, listen to it, and that's their rest stop where you can take a break and listen to classical music. Mm.
Well, rather than ask you sort of pointed questions and tear apart the manuscript, I thought maybe I could just say a few words to you that represent some concepts you talk about in the book, and maybe then you could elaborate on what some of these words mean to you. One of them from early on in the book is the notion of process. Could you talk about what process means to you?
Mm. For me, a lot of people would think that concert day is a destination. That's why I practice. But I've learned that concert day is a rest stop. For me, process is a goal. I actually don't want to have the destination done. Now, my goal is keep doing the act that I love doing, continuously doing. So then the process, the daily day process of practicing is my goal. And in the performance, it's a joyful, it's celebration. But then I long for go back again, the process of finding treasure each day. If I were running a marathon, if the marathon is my goal, but I think when I look back on what I did with the marathon, I think I would be remembering the day that I had a hard time to wake up, but then I woke up and feeling of sunrise and feeling of my touching the ground, all of daily day of the running or daily day of, creating music. It's a beautiful thing. This is my reasoning and my passion, the goal of my life. So that process is the formula. And I really don't want to have a goal in the ending destination, but try to be in the moment, be present, and actually continue doing the work that I love.
And what role do monsters play in that?
Yeah, we all have a monster. We do. I think being a performer, it's anybody who actually in front of the public would relate to the monster in your head. The monster is talking to you, often taking a big nap, like, don't talk to me often. It's just like, somewhere there, but I don't see it. But when I start to perform, you wake up from the long nap and start to chat. Oh, there's difficult section coming up. Oh, you made that mistake. Well, how stupid. Or all of these negative voices, it's not outside, but it's generated from your within. And I have to struggle so much. Like, who is this? Is this me? Who is this monster? And that's why I gave an identity who as a monster, who we all have, which is a negative voice generated within. So then I had to learn how to tame this monster. I know for sure this monster is not going to go away, but I know how to tame it so that I can live peace with it. And one of the tools that I do is a journaling and writing process. And I actually write out every negative voices onto the paper and actually look at it objectively, where this voice is coming from. Is this a voice from my childhood? Someone in the friend who actually said that? Or is that parents? Is that, what is that is coming from? I try to analyze as much as possible. And also 5 defense sentences, why this sentence is so untrue and silly. And I give like 1-to-5 ratio. And then after that, I really keep writing about self-affirmation sentences. And every time I think of some negative voices, and I try to think about positive 5 sentences right away, like covering up these negative voices. If I find that if I keep giving a food to the monster will keep growing. But there's definitely fortunate part about it for me is there's angel in me too. The angel will say, it's okay. Like this is fine. All those angelic voices are also part of me. But I realized who I am is not angel nor monster. I'm an observer of these two. And when I perform, angel voice is also distracting. It's because it's not about music. I want to focusing on music while they're having this conversation. So I want that conversation to be as automatic as possible. And so I can concentrate on the music. So only way, the daily training that I do with this dealing with monster is exactly that. I write it out, all the positive affirmations, and visualize my performance as positive, as detailed, as idyllic as possible, up to a point that someone asks me whenever you're ready. Not about actual performance, but actual preparation to that, on the day of a visualization. Like I wake up in the 7 o'clock in the morning, I feel great. I'm going to eat a smoothie, feels great. All those little nitty gritty kind of like details that I write it out, visualize the best day, and also write a positive affirmation sentences and how this music means to me, why I do this. And, and so I keep reading and keep writing. And as of now, I think I trained my monster pretty well. If my monster acting up during the performance, I would be surprised, like, oh, that monster is a newborn baby. I never heard this before. And the next I will work on that monster again. And what is that voice came from? And I want to have a help of angel to defend this as much as possible. So.
Well, I just before I continue with my questions, I just want to remind everybody that if anybody would like to ask a question or is thinking they want to, remind you that you can use the tool within Zoom to raise your hand. And if you don't know how to do that, you could feel free to just send me a message through Zoom and I'll keep an eye on the chat and I'll ask the question as well. What is the role of play in your sort of practice and philosophy?
I think we all have inner child who wants to play. And some people might say someone is more creative than not, but I disagree. I think we all have inner child needs to be played. And more creative we are, I feel more alive and connected to the universe. So for me, play means have fun, making mistakes, be curious, be open, and just laugh if things not going in a way that I hope it goes. And it's a daily practice of it too, because it's not like one day I wake up and I'm going to be creative, but it's more of actually letting some inner child play in a very small way too. Like, oh, I'm going to go to grocery store, but I'm going to take a different route today. It's not an efficient way, but it will be different. And I go that way, and like, oh, what if I just don't do anything, just daydream, like sit down in a bench and do nothing. And that void of nothingness, something come alive. And I think that everything is that the being creative, being encouraging the inner child doesn't come with judgmental voice, which I love. I think that creative self wants to have fun in the process. And when I do all of these things, what I do with the drive and want to get better, but at the same time, there's room for me to just have fun and be messy and be making mistake and laugh about it. And I think that's really important for me. And especially as an artist, when I play certain passages, may not be as most polished way, but I have to be messy in order to find those treasure moments. I have to just play some crazy way to find, oh, that actually is kind of fun. And then I may be able to dial out. And even for my book, writing a book was something I listened to my inner child. If I not listen to inner child, my monster would overpower this child and say, you're not a native speaker, you're a pianist, you're not an author. Why would you think that you have things to say? All of this monster will overpower my child. But if I just let my child to lead me, then like, whoa, that would be super fun. I think I'm going to make a book like a concert. I'm going to have 5 movements. Oh, intermission. Oh my gosh, brilliant. All of these little ideas. It's like a game. And then it's this game become a book. And I share this even the creating of a cover of it. And I want some like the piano keys on the cover or yeah. So and also the title, Whenever You're Ready. I like that, Whenever You're Ready. I do. Like that is the voice of my inner child. It's not like a serious Jeeyoon, like Dr. Kim's talking. It's me actually listening to my inner child wants to play, yet wants to play with the mission, who is the more of adult Jeeyoon. It's guiding it, but it's in the really messy open playground of my life.
When are you Dr. Kim?
When I'm oh, interesting. Yes, I am Dr. Kim. When I teach my 13 years old student who's going to major in piano, and I say, I wear that hat sometimes and say, because they're not sure yet, they're not serious enough about music, serious about perseverance. And I wear that hat sometimes, not all the time. I still sometimes goofy and have fun with them, but I say, you have to go through this like life and death. You have to commit. There's no like, oh yeah, let's see how it goes. No, you actually have to commit to it, So I teach them, and as much as I have fun, as much as I lighten up about it, I'm very dead serious about this. I'm dead serious about this, making this music as beautiful as possible. You have to be serious about this, creating art as respectful as possible. And so that's where I become Dr. Kim sometimes.
Tell me about, if you will, tell me about feeling and connection.
I think as a human being, we are meant to be connected. Otherwise, life would lose a meaning, or we will feel deserted. And I think that the connection is about everything. And the reason the art is so connected to us as a core soul is that we can just connect without having to say anything. You just can listen to a music and just feel it and just connect to the universe, which is another human being, can be another human being lived in 200 years ago, or the human being who's not born yet. You just feel like you're connected. And I think it is the connection is creating that who we are. And for me, it's a connection comes from knowing myself, that I have to connect it with myself first in order to connect with others. So I emphasize with myself that learning to myself and how to be in tune with myself. If I am in tune with what I say, what I do, what I think is the same, that's a good relationship that I have with myself. And I also, I know when I feel unhappy or tired or frustrated, I know what are the things that makes me happy. I know what are the things that makes me wake up from the bed. What are the things I have to have all these like life tools that to in tune with myself. And then when I talk to other person, and a lot of times that connection with others is choice. Just you can talk to any other person and say, you're thinking other things. Oh, what I'm gonna do? Eat breakfast, and still have a conversation. But it's your choice that really want to connect with that person. Be in that connection, and I think that becomes you probably will be more happier when you connect it deeply with someone. For me, it is. So then when I give a concert too, and I suggest people, when is the last time you had a heartache? And if I talk about the heartache in the piece, think about the heartache moment. Or someone is going through the difficult time. And what would that difficult time would be, you can never know, but you can we all have those difficult times in our lives, and try to connect. This person is going through that pain right now, that I know that pain with my experience, and tune into that way, the empathy, and try to connect. And I think that's a beautiful thing, that we can all lift each other in this life we call. And it's easier sometimes that someone else actually help you to move forward. And when you are in tune with yourself, yet connected with others, and want to connect, and through the empathy and love, and its life is easier. I think without all of this, it's already life is full of struggles. But when you try to connect, and I think that gives you a little bit of lift when you need it every now and then.
Thank you. Oh, we have a question. Hold on one sec.
Hello.
Caitlin. Hi.
Hi. This has been amazing. Thank you. And I love everything you just said about connection and empathy. I am curious to learn more about the beautiful piano behind you.
Oh, okay. A lot of people ask me if I actually named my piano, and I tempted to do that, but I actually don't name my piano. This is my piano, but it's he. It's somehow for me is a male. This is the 3 years old baby. I selected in New York. Is Steinway Factory. This is the model B, and when I select this baby, and there's like 10 different pianos, and I play one piece, like maybe a minute each piano, and 1 minute and 1 minute and 1 minute, 1 minute, and go through 10, and I close the lead immediately, at least 7 of them, which is not for me. So then after a piece of that one piece, there's 3 candidates left, and I play another piece, like this a little bit, and this a little bit, and that little bit. And this baby stood up like, you are the one. you are for me. And I said to that Steinway factory and said, this is the one. And they said that was the fastest choice ever made in their history of selecting pianos. I think it was actually within 10 minutes. And I was like, well, that's it. I was like, but oftentimes selecting piano takes sometimes months or a year up to, and they're like, oh no, I don't do. But for me, it was very instinctive. And right now it's 3 years old, which means prime condition, prime, because a year of the piano's life it's you're just get out of the newborn baby. You're just like speaking words, but not really speaking clearly. And so up to this point, I'm massaging every day. My piano technician come almost every month. And I'm monitoring the condition of piano. Like today, you're speaking this way. You're a little bit, So at this point, I find it's just like a prime of their life, and it will continue be like this and maturing for 5 years or so. And after that, I'm planning to have piano like this for every 10 years. I plan to change. So a lot of concert stage, they change piano every 5 years or so because of this, as much as this beautiful piano as it is, piano value goes down as we play. And now it's initially no, but it's when you hit the top, it goes down. I'm just in love with this piano right now. It's in its best condition, and it's a centerpiece of my place.
That actually segs into the next thing I wanted to ask you about. But I have another question about the piano. Uh-huh. Where will that piano go at the end of the 10 years?
Oh yeah. So sometimes for me, I think there will be the people in line up in my room to get the receiver of this adopting this baby because of how I take care of it. So for me, this piano, it will be okay I'm hopefully okay for the next life of the next family. But a lot of times concert stage pianos donate that piano to some organization, nonprofit organization. And often, if you're not concert pianist, the people own that one piano in their lifetime, and which could make one person very happy for their lifetime, and which is perfectly fine. And a lot of times the pianos, 50 years old or 100 years old, and still sometimes at that point the inside is completely remodeled but outside is intact. Often the old antique pianos have that, because inside of the hammers are all that is still, it's too old, but you can still maintain the shape of the beauty of that 100 years ago, the wood, the quality, and change it up. But I think at the end I saw some the bookshelf piano, it's beautiful. Piano is so beautiful instrument. The shape of the curvature, they maintain the contour, make a couch out of it. I don't know, but I hope that piano can be used in some way of shape until their life.
Will you be buried in your piano?
I don't know. I don't think so. I want to be spread into the universe.
Yeah. I have some more questions for you, but I see that some other folks have questions. So let me ask Craig to unmute himself and ask his question.
Thank you so much for joining us and sharing everything today. My question, I found it very interesting that you were talking about how when you're performing a piece that you're trying to do service or do justice to the original composer. And I'm curious how much interpretation, of a piece comes into that play, because you could play a piece faster or slower or more aggressively or more quiet. But how do you feel like that interpretation comes into play with that idea of you trying to do service to the original composer?
I think it comes from knowing that person. Like if I know, let's say Beethoven is like my friend, I know his temper. I know what he likes and he tends to do this. And I just know as a person. And from that, based on that information is coming from reading about it, listen to other genre of his music, chamber music, orchestra, other violin pieces. And then I got to know him. And then when I interpret his new music of this piano music, I just know that if I do this, I'm violating him. But so I know my boundary. But from that boundary, again, is from the research and knowing his musical tendencies. And from there, there's still like my playground is huge within that boundary. And so oftentimes when I teach, students take too much liberal interpretation. Like there's just, you slow down the end of a phrasing. There's no retardando in the phrasing. And I say, whoa, this is you're violating, you're committing crime here. And they're like, well, that's how I feel about it. And I said, there's a really fine line. You can still close the phrase without violating. If you feel like that's the music is calling for closing, which is your interpretation, you can still do that so many other ways without committing or interfering with the composer's intention. And so when I talk about interpretation, is that again, when I said about who I am as a person, I emphasize certain sections of piece because I feel them more strongly, and a certain color change that I feel is so strongly without really violating what is already written. And it feels a lot of times people would think that it's really based on this boxed in, but actually this box is huge. I can do whatever I want within that, and that's coming from knowing that person, knowing this composer, and knowing that freedom. And from that freedom, I think you can still be yourself as much as you can. And that's how I really have fun with the pieces. That I this is still gonna be me interpreting Beethoven, but it's gonna be still Beethoven. But it's inevitable. It's coming through me because I'm not Beethoven's ghost playing it. Beethoven's going to play completely different than I do, which is totally interesting. But it will be still Beethoven. It won't be Jeeyoon Kim music. So it's a fine line. I know it's hard to say right now, but each piece bring a piece of music, and that's where discussion comes from. That's where like there's certain pianists definitely I feel like they're violating so much, and I feel offended as if I'm a lawyer or personal representation of that composer. I feel like, oh no, that's like that he would not like that, So without being too scholarly, I think there's definitely a lot of room, more than you think, that I respect composers and still interpret as much as you want as who you are.
Another question came to me through the chat, but I'm going to go first with my question because I have the microphone, so I get to do that. I'm curious if you've ever played a piece in front of the composer, in front of a living composer.
Oh, I did. It's not a living, no, it is the living composer. John Williams. I actually did play his cello music. It's from Lincoln, I think the movie. But this was actually chamber music that John Williams, in the presence of me playing his music. And he was sick at the rehearsal, so he had nothing to say about what we were doing. So the only thing he said, like, he enjoyed it. But it was nerve-wracking in a way, like, am I not violating? It was actually harder. I actually much rather composer not in the presence. And of course, I play some living composer pieces, and then I can actually have a conversation. But I find that actual real conversation is not as helpful as you think. I actually much rather have my inner dialogue and knowing this person as a score reading and knowing their life and all that. It's actually a deeper relationship than someone actually gave me a piece and let's talk about this piece. And then like, I can have all the conversation, but I feel that that's less of freedom in some ways.
Yeah. Do you often encounter modern music from living composers? Like how should the audience think about that? Is this music something that's continuing to evolve, or is it something that is an established canon that's fixed in time?
I think the beauty of the high classic music, like as you said, Bach is the pinnacle of it, and everything else is downhill. Or the Beethoven going to the spaceship, music, or that beauty is timeless. That's no question about it. Somehow, some way, the reason that Einstein is Einstein time, something about that time era, the people were just crazy. They just could do that kind of a creation, and that we will enjoy even 100 or 200, 500 years from now. I think that we will still enjoy. But having just said that, still there's a living composer who's living right now and creating something. And something about it is it's very different, I would say. It's different kind of modern clothing, and I feel like I'd much rather wear this like 300 years old clothing than the modern clothing. But I try to wear this. It's as if this is like a new clothing that maybe I am closed mind about it. So I have to keep open-minded myself that there might be something to that I can connect, and I try to connect. And not all the contemporary composers that I can connect, but there's some certain music that I feel like, oh, that's very interesting. For example, they're interpreting some sound of waves and collaborating the huge screen with the wave moving and with the sound coming through 3D and sound coming from back, and all of this new music actually created in this modern era that with the possibility of you couldn't do 300 years ago is very interesting and contemporary, and love it. So there's definitely room for us to be open-minded, yet appreciating the beauty from the old. And for me, actually, unfortunately, the balance would be 90% to 10%. The 10% of a contemporary music continuously open-minded and trying, but yet for me, when I say classical music, I'm talking about those the form of the music that we should spread to the alien in the other world as well.
Actually, before I ask any more questions there, we do have somebody else. Connor, you want to unmute yourself and ask?
Sure. Thanks for joining. Earlier, you were talking about, when someone listens to your music for the first time, that they can just carve out an hour and dedicate that time to your music. And just as you've refined kind of your unique style, I was just wondering, is there a state that you're hoping someone can be in during that time, or a sentiment that you're hoping to express to them when they have that moment?
Oh, yeah. I think it is intention of carve out an hour is already enough. And from there, I don't want to force anything more than that. If you want to connect only with the music, with the headphone, close your eyes. I think the music will take you somewhere. That the particular music might take you, all of a sudden you think about your childhood, you play a soccer with your friend, and why I'm thinking about that, I don't know, but I'm thinking that, and it's okay. And all of a sudden, in that stage that you think, try to connect that music, and you feel some kind of sensation with the music. It can be, oh, this is fun. And then that is good too. And I think it's the best state of music is open and welcome everything. And my favorite moment of a meditation, when I do meditation, is the moment that, sometimes you let go and follow your thoughts. that thought is one thought and another thought and another thought. And it's really interesting, like, oh, I have like at least 20 thoughts at the same time kind of thing. And I think the music, if you try to tune in again, like try to connect to the music at the very moment, you, who is you still, but you're not in control, will take you somewhere and follow that person. And then, and try to go deeper into that thought. And the music is only like 5 minutes. You have to wake up from it. So then you wake up and you kind of lingering to that thought and enjoy that the music took you there, and which is a beautiful thing. And because not always you will go there, but the music brought you there, that memory or that feeling. And I think that's what I want you to go. That's not, I don't know what you're going to feel, but that's a beautiful thing. And I'm excited for that journey for you. But I'm not there. You are there.
Well, we're nearing the end of our time together, and I had two final questions I thought I could ask you. One goes back to when we were talking about your piano, and also from the book. Could you talk a little bit about the environment you've created? We talked a little bit about it off mic before the conversation, but could you tie that back into what sort of environmental design, I guess you will, that notion you have in the book?
Yeah, I mean, as a pianist, each piano has a personality, and people might think this is the thing, but to me, it's a living thing. I have a conversation. So with this kind of connection that I create with the thing, which is the dead or maybe furniture looking, but it's a living thing, it taught me how to create a connection with the thing, environment around us, this pencil, this computer, this desk, everything. And I wanted to create, not all the time, but as much as possible, as minimal as possible. For if I can turn a little bit in my space, there's nothing but piano. There's no dining table. There's no comfy table or couch or anything. But it's a focal point of my life. Is I designed this particular environment. When I walk through this space, that it's reminded what my focus of my life is, which is this piano. And in that void of open space, I can be creative. I can think of some new ideas. There's reason, I'm sure, Steve Jobs that wears same t-shirt and shirt all the time. There's simplicity about it. And that simple place that you can allow to think some other ideas. And I think I can never wear the same clothing every day. So I can never be in that minimalistic approach. But I love the concept of Marie Kondo, which is the advocate of a minimalistic approach. In the concept of it, principle is that, is this thing gives you a joy? Is this a focal point of your life? And if this piano is a focal point of my life, I want my design of my space also reflect that. And when I first, moved in this space, I made a conscious choice to do that, so that this place has a chameleon kind of possibility. If I want this space to have a little concert, if 30 people in it, I can have it because I have the open space. If I want just to lie down in the floor and just think about nothing, I can do that too. And I wish for everybody to design the space. If you want to play more guitar, put the guitar in the focal point of your space, nothing else. Then they're more likely you will go to the guitar because it's a reminder every single day. And I think we all can try harder to find what is important to you and design your space to reflect that.
Well, I think that's actually a beautiful notion to leave on. So thank you so much for making time to talk to us.
Thank you so much. This was a very interesting conversation, and I hope that it gave some new perspective to listeners and open up and hopefully meet me through podcast or my book as well.
Wonderful. Thank you.